This video is sponsored by Squarespace. First and foremost, I'm a racing driver, but I'm trying to grow into an entrepreneur and be successful in business. Any guesses who this quote's from? Keep watching to find out. Jarno Trulli, F1 driver from 97 to 2011, now owns a vineyard. KIMI RAIKKONEN, F1 driver from 2001 till last year, owns a clothing line with West Coast Choppers. And Robert Dornbos, F1 driver from 2004 to 2006, owns a toy company. We might only associate these human beings who jump into F1 cars with racing, but they're just people at the end of the day, and plenty over the years have chosen to take their spare time out of the car and all the wealth they've accrued over an F1 career and put it into business. So today I'm going to go over all 20 drivers on the 2022 grid and tell you everything you need to know about their entrepreneurial endeavours. From wine to coffee, from an ice hockey team to a bloody museum. First thing I think we need to address before we get into the drivers as individuals is why. Why do F1 drivers like to go into businesses? Well, look, just like most athletes, your career is relatively short. You're looking at 20 years professional as a maximum, pretty much, unless you're a freak of nature like Fernando Alonso. Typically winding up in your mid-30s if you want to compete in F1, where the biggest payday of all motorsport is. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other disciplines you can go into, but we all know what the pinnacle is considered to be, and certainly F1 is the pinnacle in terms of reach and exposure. And look, investing all that money you've accrued throughout your career into a business makes a lot of sense, because F1 drivers have always been paid pretty handsomely. There's a reason why most live in Monaco, and whether or not you need the money, whether you think you do at a young age or think you might later on in life, it's also just great to have something to put your time into after you've retired. It depends massively on your financial planning. I'd really recommend Spencer Cornelia if you want to hear a lot more about why so many professional athletes end up going broke after they retire. Every F1 driver is an individual, so there's a huge variety of different businesses that they've chosen to jump into. But before we get into them, let's quickly tick off all the drivers who don't appear to have business ventures going on. Mostly younger drivers, or maybe just ones that aren't public with what they do behind the scenes. Maybe some of these drivers do. Let me know down below if I've missed anyone. Starting with Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll, obviously known for their billionaire fathers. Look, that's all well and good. It might be in their family's name, but whether it's Safina for Latifi or whether it's Aston Martin, Michael Kors, all that for Stroll, they're not Nicky or Lance's businesses, so they don't count. My darling Alex Albon, you might have a great Instagram for your cats, but that's not a business, mate. Or even if they are making a bit of money, I'm pretty sure it's your sisters who run the page, not you, Alex. So you can't take credit for that, mate. I'm sorry. You got Joe busting out the Prada every weekend. Now, does he own a stake in Prada? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's just an ambassadorial relationship, and I'm sure he doesn't pay a penny for all that Prada in the wardrobe. Carlos Sainz has the Carlos Sainz karting school, but that's actually owned by his dad, Carlos Sainz Senior, the OG, the R9 to CR7. And then you've got Schumacher, Magnussen, Gasly, Tsunoda, Ocon, and Russell, which all have, various relationships with different brands on an ambassadorial level, but no seeming business ownership anyway. Starting with Valtteri Bottas, this man has a lot going on. His 10% ownership, so significant ownership, of Finnish ice hockey team, the Lahti Pelicans. Valtteri grew up in Nastola in Finland, which is within the kind of Lahti general province. And the Pelicans are the big team in Lahti, one of the biggest teams in Finnish ice hockey. Apparently the way it went down is that Valtteri was a guest, and at the time the Lahti Pelicans were going through some financial difficulties, so some conversations happened, made some inquiries, and took the opportunity to buy some shares in the team to give the team a bit of a financial kick. There's Valtteri's very own coffee company. We know he loves a bit of the caffeinated stuff. He's talked about this at length. F1's answer to Peter McKinnon. The Kahiwa Coffee Company has their very own cafe and bakery based in Lahti, of course. Online you can buy various coffee beans, you can buy merchandise, accessories, and it's all presented on this really slick, beautifully crafted little website. And you know what? That reminds me of today's video sponsor, Squarespace, because if you want to build your very own website that looks just as good, if not better, than Valtteri's Coffee Company, Squarespace is the place to go to make it happen from the comfort of your own home. Thousands of beautiful drag and drop template designs available. It's an absolute breeze. Made even easier with Squarespace's brand new website building software, Fluid Engine. 24/7 customer support, free to try until you want to put your website live to the world as well. There's absolutely nothing to lose if you do want to give it a go. And once you've inevitably built something that you love and you want to push live, you should probably head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, before you mention it, I know cycling is a big passion of Valtteri's. I'm sure that's particularly galvanised by the fact that his Mrs. Tiffany Cromwell is a professional cyclist. But as of now, there doesn't seem to be a cycling-related business venture going on with Bottas. Although the reason I mention this is that him and Tiffany have collaborated on something very different. Oath Gin is a gin brand that they're working on together. I've seen a bunch of pictures of him rocking it in the pits, obviously not drinking it, don't drink and drive. And when you look a bit further into the details of the business, it does appear to be a true couples collaboration. Drawing inspiration from the oats in Valtteri Bottas's family fields in Finland and the famous Adelaide grown apples near Tiffany Cromwell's house in Stirling, Australia. Doesn't that sound lovely? I do love a gin and lemonade, so Valtteri, if you're watching, hit me up. Now, we can't talk about work outside of Formula One, outside of racing, and not talk about Sebastian Vettel. Seb has pioneered a massive variety of different purpose-driven ventures off of the track using the platform he's built, from Race Without a Trace, where he ran the Williams FW14B that he owns on completely carbon neutral fuel, which is potentially a bit of a look ahead to what we're seeing in 2026 according to the regulations anyway, to Race for Women, an event he put on in Saudi Arabia where all competitors were female, driving in go-karts. All of these ventures of Seb's aren't businesses in the typical capitalistic for-profit sense. Many are charities that Seb has helped set up, others are more ambassadorial roles that he's got, like his Save the Bees campaign, for example. That's a project he got involved with as part of the Biobienen Apfel, I've definitely butchered that, which is a German charity focused on saving bees. You got Children of the Revolution, teaching kids about the importance of protecting the planet. You got Water Equals Life, raising awareness around protecting the oceans. Formula 1.5 degrees, global warming awareness, keep it clean, pick up your litter, only Bellens litter, so don't do it. And Climeworks, work on research around direct air capture, something that's also being touted as part of this 100% sustainable F1 fuel solution, but is choosing to put his time, his money, his resource into ventures that are bigger than himself, more purposeful than himself, and you have to give the man credit for that. Now on to Checo Perez, a man who has a lot more going on than I realised before I started researching this video, to be honest. And without a doubt, Sergio's most long-running business outside of Formula One is the foundation he founded in 2012. He started the Checo Perez Foundation when he was just 22, and the initial kind of aim and goal was to support orphans and kids with cancer in Mexico. But since then, it's gone to support numerous children's programs and shelters across the country, literally having a positive impact on millions of kids. Checo's sister Paola is president of the foundation, so it's very much a family affair. In his hometown of Guadalajara, I've learned how to pronounce that. I'm not going to say Guadalajara ever again. I'm so sorry. The foundation has built a multi-sensory simulation centre for kids who are differently abled. What an absolute diamond. Honestly, I'm actually a bit embarrassed that I didn't know more about all of Checo's amazing work. But now I do, and now you do too. But now back to racing. Checo's got something very exciting that was only announced a couple of months ago actually, which is his very own electric boat racing team. Basically the on-water version of Extreme E and Formula E, called the E1 series. Now, the man who founded E1, Alejandro Agag, was Checo's team principal back when he was racing GP2, so maybe that relationship played a part. But now big business time. You might recognise this Kavak logo from Checo's helmet. Well, it's a used car marketplace valued at over $8 billion. And Checo is a shareholder. To what extent? I don't know. I'm sure that's very privileged information, but he does own shares in that company. And last but by no means least, and again, this is kind of more of an ambassadorial thing because Checo does have a relationship with Patron Tequila, but unfortunately there's no product with his name on it, so I can't count it. Sorry, Checo. On to Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis seems to be a man who's actually had ambitions to get into business for quite a while now. Speaking to ESPN back in 2018, and if you guessed Lewis Hamilton at the start of the video, well done. First and foremost, I'm a racing driver, but I'm trying to grow into an entrepreneur and be successful in business. I want to do it my own way. I don't feel that I am a cutthroat businessman. As such, my view is that positive relationships will equal respect, trust, and longevity. And you've got Lewis's collaborations where he's actually worked on product with another brand. There's numerous lines with Tommy Hilfiger. Tommy's been a long-term supporter of Lewis's career, and these lines always have sold like hotcakes. Then you've got MV Augusta Motorcycles, which is another brand that Lewis has worked with on product. Apparently this all began when Lewis bought an MV Augusta bike years back, fell in love with it so much that he was like, I want to do something with you lot. But then there's his actual business part ownerships, right? And this varies from small startups to big franchises. And first and foremost, let's start with Neat Burger. It's a vegan burger chain invested in by Lewis, started by Zachary Bishti. They're about to open their 5th site in London, so they're doing bits. There's one near Liverpool Street, which I need to go to sometime. And for you lot, I went the extra mile. I went to the Neat Burger at Bishopsgate, went in super nice in there, ordered on this touchscreen tablet. Had quite a long wait. I was surprised by how long it took actually for the food to come, but I got it in the end. Went back to my train, jumped on. So Tommo, what did you make a Neat Burger, mate?
Nice box, drink, game changer. Ooh, pretty decadent actually. Look at that. Very messy, but very good. That burger, for a vegan burger as well. The Neat Burger from Neat Burger. 9 out of 10. Easy 9 out of 10.
Then there's X44, his Extreme E team, which, you know, Jensen Button, Nico Rosberg also have franchises in that series. And 44, he's firmly jumping into from a brand point of view. Because we've just had the launch of that Plus 44 World thing, which was that mysterious kind of Instagram account that no one really knew what was going on. Turns out, for now anyway, it's merchandise. Lewis has done one-off launches of collections before. This isn't the first time, but it looks like with this Plus 44 thing, this is maybe going to be a bigger, broader brand going forward, which is like really exciting to see. I'm really interested to see what he comes up with under this. But then I think the most high-profile business venture that Lewis has recently jumped into is part ownership of the Denver Broncos, which of course is an American football team based out of Denver, Colorado. And this was quite soon after his failed attempts to be part of a consortium that was looking to buy Chelsea Football Club. So Lewis clearly has an interest in being involved in top tier sport at a top tier business boardroom level. Now, one venture that kind of is a business, but I don't know if we can call it that just yet, is his lyrical stuff, his music, because of course XNDA is the name that he's put his music production stuff under, and we've only seen one thing as far as I'm aware in terms of publicly available music, the song Pipe from 2018 that he worked on with Christine Aguilera. I find the word pipe for a song name uncomfortable. Maybe it's just me. Is that a thing? Once he does eventually retire, I like to think we'll see a bit more music stuff coming out of Lewis, because he's got a pretty good voice. And then of course, last of all, we have to talk about Lewis's charity work, which is extensive. The main focuses right now appear to be around the Hamilton Commission, which is aiming to address and understand why there's such a lack of black representation in motorsport, not just driving by the way, but in all levels and in all departments. And then there's Mission 44, a foundation with the aim to create a fair and inclusive society where all young people can reach their full potential. Now to the old boy, Fernando Alonso, right? He is the first person in this list that is helping develop real junior talent and potentially getting them to Formula One one day. Esteban Masson, Nicolas Baptiste and Victor Bernier all compete in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, otherwise known as FRECA, for FA Racing. FA stands for Fernando Alonso, obviously. And that championship is basically European Formula 3. Then of course there is Kamoa. We all know about Kamoa because it's always plastered on Fernando's forehead. Has a special edition one for most Grand Prix too, it seems. Kamoa is a fashion lifestyle brand founded in part with Fernando Alonso himself. They don't just sell caps, but sunglasses, clothing, cycling gear as well. And it was announced fairly recently that Fernando sold his majority stake to a company called Simply EV, diluting his stake to about 25%. So he's still got plenty of vested interest in the business. He just doesn't have that ultimate role and responsibility anymore. Fernando's also an investor and board member at Motorsport Games. Those are the people behind the NASCAR games, R Factor 2, and they've got that BTCC license, which they're not doing anything with yet, it seems. Then, of course, there's his charity work under the Fundacion Fernando Alonso, which is a foundation that appears to cover numerous causes, particularly around initiatives related to kids' road safety, actually. Fernando is also a UNICEF donator, particularly towards the ongoing humanitarian crisis for kids in Syria. And last of all, and I really need to go to this place, if you have, let me know in the comments below, how good is it? Because Fernando Alonso has his very own museum, the Museo Circuito Fernando Alonso. Terrible pronunciation, I'm so sorry, but it opened in March 2011, just north of Oviedo, which is Fernando Alonso's hometown. The museum now contains all of Fernando's F1 cars prior to 2016, including his 2 championship winning Renaults. On top of that, it even has a top tier CIK FIA rated karting track. Absolute madness. I wonder if this has anything to do with all the helmet swaps that Fernando loves to do. Maybe he's just gradually kind of building so he's got like everyone's helmets in Formula One. And it would actually make a lot of sense because that would be pretty cool as an exhibit. With Daniel Ricciardo, we've got to start with the clobber, namely his clothing collaboration with Race Service. The LA-based automotive creative agency is probably, I think right now, the coolest business in the world, in my opinion anyway. Just go on their Instagram and just look. It's sick, mate. I'm gutted when I was in LA, I couldn't find the time to find where they are and just break in and look at things. They handle the creative side of Daniel Ricciardo's merch, but now let's talk about booze, because Daniel has a couple of booze related endeavours. Firstly, the wine, the vino. Partnering with South Australian winery St Hugo under the DR3 X St Hugo name, they created two wines, a 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon and a 2020 Shiraz. The former's sold out, the latter's available for about 70 Aussie dollars a pop. I don't like red wine, so it's not for me. But there is a cherry on top of this collaboration, and it is something very special. I present to you the Ricciardo decanter. All sold out, they were $700 a pop, and it is a glass bottle in the shape of a Daniel Ricciardo race boot. Because shoey. That would have been a sick little background prop, but I doubt it's going to be available for anything less than $1,000 now that it's all sold out, so never mind. And then there's Daniel's venture into beer. Now, once again, he collaborated with a established manufacturer. In this case, it's the Blue Coast Brewing Company based out of the south of France, which I guess with Daniel living in Monaco, I imagine that's probably where that connection comes from. You can get a 24 pack of a lager number 3 Daniel Ricciardo, which will set you back just shy of €70. Unfortunately, I also don't like beer. I'm a cider man. Daniel, please make some cider so I can drink your fluids. And then outside of those product collaborations, Daniel, of course, has brand partnerships, quite a few of them actually. GoPro, Thorn, Beats, Optus, car sales, but again, they're all more just ambassadorial things. Now, there's a few miscellaneous business ventures I thought better to put together, right? Because this first one is, again, a complete no-brainer for an F1 driver to jump into. Running their own karting team just makes sense. Put your name, your established top tier name, put it into the lower tiers where, you know, a lot of kids look up to you and want to be part of your racing team. It makes a lot of sense. Charles Leclerc has CL Karting, which is in partnership with Italian karting manufacturer Birel ART. And also that's it for Charles in terms of a business front. He's done a bit of product shooting for Armani, but again, that's just an ambassador thing. He actually kind of has this karting team, so that's his little business right now. Danny Rick has Ricciardo Kart, which is also operated by Birel ART. Lando Norris has LN Kart, which is also operated by an Italian karting manufacturer, but his is OTK, otherwise known as Tony Kart. And Fernando Alonso has FA Karting, again operated by OTK. Now look, realistically, do these drivers play much of a role in terms of actually running these teams? No, it's pretty much just a re-liverying of these karts. But you have to call these collaborative business ventures for sure, because these drivers' names are on these cars. And then the next most obvious business for an F1 driver to jump into is the virtual version. Esports. Max Verstappen has been part of Team Redline for a long time now, one of esports' most successful racing teams. But now, as of April 2022, Max has branched out and launched Verstappen.com Racing. Branding includes Red Bull, so it's clearly not a project of Max's own volition, but his name is still very much on there. That'll be competing in numerous virtual events, but also they'll be supporting his dad Jos, who's looking to jump into WRC next year under a Verstappen.com liveried car. Sure, Max has big support from Jumbo and CarNext, but in terms of his actual business and ventures that he's involved with, this Verstappen.com kind of esports thing is the only thing I can really find. And then of course you can't talk about F1 drivers and esports team without talking about Lando Norris and Quadrant. It may just seem like a content channel on the face of it, but there were always ambitions for Quadrant to do bits on a professional esports stage. Kind of like you see with 100 Thieves and FaZe, right? These are esports teams that the content grows the brand image and the brand exposure, but they also have actual real top tier competitors competing in esports under their names. You got FIFA Kill, who plays Call of Duty Warzone, and you've got a 5-player roster in Halo. I'm very interested to see where Quadrant goes as an org in time, because I think there's a lot of potential esports that they could definitely jump into and do well in. And there we have it. That's everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. My name's been Tommo, as it usually is. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.